not Taylor Swift. I'm a filmmaker, and like I'm at a concert. I was just cruising around having my normal life, and then Taylor Swift texted me. I don't know her. She left me like a voice message, and then we talked on the phone. And I get to introduce her now. I'm so honored that she wanted me to do this Q&A with her. Surprised and honored. And I can tell you from our one phone call and our few little conversations, this is one really gracious, really funny, such a hardworking, and such a creative, powerful person. So Taylor,
Well, hi guys.
This is how all my Q&As go.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for wanting to be here with us today, and thank you for wanting to talk to me.
I'm really excited. Yeah, it's so nice to be in a room with people gathered together to watch a film. And thank you to the Tribeca Film Festival for making it.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing us to do this.
I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm so excited to talk to you because
I'm also nervous.
Really, I'm a little nervous too.
These people screaming is kind of
It's
weird.
it's better, them screaming than if they're just sort of like skeptically silent.
Yeah.
It's preferable that they're doing this.
It's great.
So it's nothing we're doing. But we know each other because we're both part of the Aaron Dessner, the National Cinematic Universe, which is a lovely, joyful place.
It is.
And I wanted to say right off the bat that your short film for I'm Easy to Find was one of the most influential things I've watched. It really inspired me in ways that I can't possibly overstate, and I've watched it so many times, but every time I watch it, I go through every single range of the most intense types of emotions. It's really, if you haven't seen it, it's such a beautiful film.
Such a gracious person. Thank you, Taylor. But we're here to talk about you and your directing. So I want to get into the song and history of the song, which has like its own magical journey. But before that, okay, obviously you have such a strong ability to connect with people through your music and your story writing in your music. So proven, so strong, so there. Why, how did you get to directing? Like what drew you to it, or what made you feel like you had to do it?
Well, I've been very fortunate to be able to be on sets of music videos for 15 years. So that started when I was about 15. And I was always very curious. I was always looking and learning and trying to absorb as much as I possibly could. And I think I started to sort of venture into the edit. A few music videos in, I started just going into the edit and making changes and meddling. It started with meddling, and it went from kind of meddling with the edit to then writing the treatments for the music videos. So that started a while ago. That was almost 10 years ago that I started writing the treatments for the music videos, but then outsourcing the directing to, reaching out to a director and saying, hey, this is the concept I want to do. Because, the visual aspect of my music has always felt like a very natural extension of the storytelling and the writing. And I'll have images in my head most of the time, right, as I'm conceptualizing the song. I actually ended up making the jump from writer to director when I was getting ready to make a music video called The Man. You've seen it, that's helpful. It's been
an amazing start. Like what an accomplished out of the box, like with amazing concept and well done on both sides of the camera.
Thank you. It happened almost out of necessity, because my first instinct was to write the treatment, send it out. I wanted a female director to direct it, and all of my favorite female directors were booked and busy, which is great. We love that. That's fantastic. And so I just figured maybe I could do it. And so my first call was to Prieto, who is the incredible cinematographer who I cannot believe I got to work with my first time directing, and I learned so much from him. And I've been very lucky to work with people over the years that just inherently, watching their empathy or watching their sort of the introspective way that they perceive life and then reflect it on camera. Like Lana Wilson, she directed this documentary called Miss Americana, and you guys are amazing. And she was, being around her, you know, we'd spend hours and hours where she's fly on the wall, filming the recording process of my life, but we would also just talk for hours, and I learned so much from her, and I know I can always text her if I have a question, and I'm very lucky to have people who have helped me educate myself and learn about this, and I'm constantly still learning. But once I started directing music videos, I didn't want to not do it. I found it incredibly fulfilling.
And it seems like such a natural extension of what you do as a singer-songwriter.
It is. It feels like it felt very natural to extend writing a song and visualizing it in my head to, you know, making a shot list and storyboarding it and picking who we wanted as the head of each department and who would help put this puzzle together. And it's been a different approach for each one. We shot the Cardigan and Willow music videos. So
I'm going to be so depressed when I bring up my work and this doesn't Next time we're all together, just remember.
It should happen.
Okay.
Who here has seen Come On, Come On? They're just really nice.
Very out-of-body experience.
It's
Okay.
not as elusive to me.
My therapist is this down the street, so... as a director who was like a total wannabe musician and thinks that music's really the higher art because it's really much more connected to energy and like it has a more spiritual thing to me, it's like more direct. Like, I'm still curious, like, you have so much power, creative power, like you really can fulfill yourself. What was it about film that isn't in music?
That's a really interesting question. I think that I always sort of thought that it was something that other people did, and I just would be around it, and I in my head I'd think, oh, I love that they did that, I would have done that differently, and so the lists of things I was absorbing became so long that eventually I thought, I really want to do this, and I think I had this imposter syndrome in my head saying, no, you don't do that. Other people do that who went to school to do that.
I didn't go to school.
Oh, that's fantastic to know that. That makes me feel better. It's also
a pirate ship. It's a big pirate ship.
It's been an amazing. Don't you feel like it's such an interesting exercise in trusting your gut instinct, because there are so many decisions you have to make, and saying I don't know or I'm not sure yet really isn't an option most of the time.
It can be. It's said the right way. I want to say
really?
Because we had a phone call and you said a director needs to have an answer every single time and know what they're asking.
Maybe that's just being a female director.
Word. Do you feel like often, especially with actors, the best thing to do is ask the question back, maybe sometimes?
Yeah.
Or also, like, doubt can be super powerful.
I think that I definitely see that in your work. You have such an introspective sort of patience with the way that you approach humanity.
Though, it's funny. Yeah.
Really?
Oh my God, I'm the worst.
Oh my God, I would never imagine that. You seem like you'd be the best.
I'm very impatient with everyone behind the camera and incredibly patient with everyone in front of the camera.
Yeah, to me it seems like you put implicit, profound trust in your actors, and to me it reads as if you treat your actors as the collaborators that they are.
Yes, and I think it's very true with your piece, and we're gonna talk more about that later. But your relationship with your actors did seem very symbiotic, to say the least, and I really love what was going on between you and Sadie in the story, and just the energy. Well, maybe let's talk about the song and the short film, because there's three. If you could entertain me, there's three things I'd love you to try to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
One is, you've told me a bit about the journey of the song. It's really kind of magic, and I love how you, in one way, you don't control what you make, right? Or how it gets made, or how it goes out in the world. And then the song is another part of the story, point two, the way that you've taken control of the ownership of your work. And this amazing... a truly historic, radical thing that you're doing, that this piece is a part of. And me and Aaron had a good session about how radical it is. So all the musician friends that I know think that as well. And then there's a lovely thing. I watched your commencement speech. While we're texting, all of a sudden, while we're texting, it's like then the internet said that, oh, Taylor Swift is doing the commencement speech, and everybody was like, how is she doing that and texting me? Anyways, you're a pretty cool customer. So you said something that I'm sure everyone here knows, but it was really struck me as like, being the youngest person in every room for over a decade meant that I was constantly being like told what to do. And I was like, right, I want to make a film about that, actually.
Really?
I mean, what a crazy thing to be you going through all that. And it seems like it gave you such a sensitivity to youth, younger people who have a power that aren't being given it. And then this film seems to be a lot about when you're in this strange youth situation that's both powerful and strong and has this vibrancy, but also has this deep vulnerability. And I was like, oh, that's what she's kind of talking about, being the youngest person in the room. You had so much vulnerability, you were a child, and you had so much power, and how strange. So, okay, long questions.
No, it's an amazing question. Honestly, that's such a thoughtful question and a thoughtful way to put it. I remember talking to you on the phone a couple days ago when you were talking about what inspires you to want to make a film, and you said something like, I only want to make a film if I'm the only person who could make it that way, but with your insight and your experience. And I feel like making this short film, I think I gave myself permission to completely make that jump into making a narrative short film, because this is not a music video. We approached everything differently. And shooting it on 35mm, and all the decisions that were made to create these characters and dive into this world. I really do write about girlhood a lot. There's a lot of girlhood woven through my music. And I'm very fascinated, and always have been, since I was in my mid-20s, with this phase of becoming a young woman where you're this very fragile and vulnerable age. I think 19 and 20 is such an interesting and profound experience for a young woman, because it's like you have one foot still in girlhood, and yet society and the world is telling you you're an adult, and there are so many opportunities for you to lose your girlhood and have it taken from you, and it's inevitable that happens when you become an adult, but the ways in which it can happen when you are in some ways still so unformed as just this piece of clay, this person who hasn't cultivated their life yet. They don't have, they don't have a coffee machine in their kitchen. They don't have these tastes that adults 10 years older or more have cultivated at that point, because we spend our 20s searching and being so curious.
It also seems like what you're always talking about is like your boundaries of yourself and your selfhood versus what you're giving someone else.
Absolutely. I think that what I wanted to make was a film about an effervescent, curious young woman who ends up completely out of her depth. You know, when you're like walking into the ocean and it's so fun, the idea of going out so deep that your feet don't touch the ground, but you could get swept away. And I wanted to show that extremely intense thing that can happen when you go out into the world and you're so curious about all these experiences, and you're so, you know, this character, she's so idealistic. And that is actually one of the forces that I think brings these two characters together, because I see him, I named them her and him. So, so he is a character who has been through things, has had experiences with humiliation and setbacks and shame and bad news and bad luck, and these experiences have sort of made him feel like there's a disconnect between him and her. But these qualities in her, this idealism, this fresh, wide-eyed approach to life, just bounding into new experiences, is also such a draw. There's something so, I wanted it to feel like them falling together was inevitable, and them falling apart was just as inevitable. And the things that made them come together, I wanted it to feel like there were these forces at play. And they could not stop from colliding, and they couldn't stop from being dismantled. So, I don't know.
You're really such a writer's brain. That's so beautifully put, and I think you really achieved that in the piece. And you really remind me of talking to a writer-director, because you're just all about the story, and you want to communicate with these people's inner lives and emotions. And that's so. That will go far.
Oh, thank you. I love this John Cassavetes quote where he says, I've never seen a helicopter explode in the sky. I've never seen someone blow someone's head off. So why would I make a film about that? What I have seen is people destroy themselves in the littlest of ways. And I'm just like, oh. Yeah. I felt that one.
Back to your commencement speech. I really love it. There's a part, I'm going to save my favorite part for a little bit. But there's another thing you said. You said that we are all literary chameleons. And I think it's fascinating. It's just a continuation of the idea that we are so many things all the time. Like I was like, whoa, what is she talking about? That's amazing. But,
oh, thank you.
Yeah. Is that alive in this story? Or is that just alive in your career and what you're doing right now with the directing?
I love talking to you. So the fact that Sadie's character is a writer, it's sort of foreshadowed throughout. It's one of the narrative structures it's one of the narrative devices that I loved sprinkling through the short film. So we start out and there's a Neruda quote, which absolutely destroyed me and still does. It's a violent thing to read something that poignant. So we start with that, and that's, in reference to the fact that she is a writer. Then we see this scene that foreshadows her. She says, I feel like I made you up. Like, are you real? Are you for real? I feel like I made you up. Foreshadows the fact that one day she will write a book and she will sort of fictionalize his character into her main character in her novel. We worked
the audience has chills.
We worked with this amazing typography studio in London called Fraser Muggeridge, and they created this very unique font to create these chapter markers. So these chapter markers, when you see in the end that she's written this novel, you kind of tie it together that those chapter markers were chapters of her novel that she would one day write. So the reason you're seeing things like the breaking point and the first crack in the glass, those are chapters of her book one day. But there's more. So there's this red typewriter, and if you look really closely when we're following her through this hallway with Steadicam, and we pan and we meet him for the first time, we pan across a red typewriter. And then later on, we see her typing on that typewriter, and we assumed that he gave it to her, that she complimented it, and he gave it to her. So he's taken a lot from her in the course of this story, but he's also given her something. He's given, this dream and hope she had to be a writer. Her experience with him is what galvanized that into her life and her career. And so there are a lot of ways in which I do feel that both characters are protagonists, because I spent a lot of time thinking about why they are the way they are, why they fell in love and why they fell apart. And the ending scene where he's looking through a window, that's for me where he becomes, I think, fully a protagonist, because we can all relate to being on the outside looking in, being outside, having regrets. It's kind of like that, that movie Stella Dallas, the Barbara Stanwyck, that last scene where she goes to watch her long-lost daughter get married through a window. And it's they have very different motivations. And how that character feels, because as she's walking away, her eyes are filled with tears and she's grinning, and you know that she's proud that even though she wasn't there for her daughter, she was able to, whatever it was that happened in her daughter's life, she ended up happy at the end, and she's happy to see that. I didn't want us to see his face as he's walking away, because I wanted us to wonder, was he happy? Was he just seeing if she was okay? Was he about to walk in, but was he leaving thinking it's time to leave well enough alone?
Yeah.
Like, I've put her through enough, and we will always wonder, we will never know.
What a great sense of drama you have. I don't have that at all. I always struggle, how do I make this interesting? It seems to just bound out of you, like the electricity of moments. You're very good at seeing and making. Well, communicating it is a whole different thing. That's not drama to me. That's like a lot of control and poise and hard work. And you seem like a truly deeply curious person in the best sense of the word, like you're always learning and getting the sense.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I really feel like I'm at a concert that's like in slow motion.
The best. They're the best.
That's okay, I'm just going to jump to bigger. Are you going to do bigger films? Are you going to do longer films? Are you going to do feature films? Where are you going?
I would love to.
Awesome.
I really would. It would be so fantastic to write and direct something, a feature. I don't see it being bigger in terms of scale. I loved making a film that was so intimate and with a crew that was relatively small, and just a really solid crew of people that I trusted. When I was putting together this team, the first person that I went to was Renee Yang, who is our incredible cinematographer and DP. And I really loved her work because she's such a genius at working on film, shooting on film. And I had written this massive manuscript, treatment, images. I think I sent it to you.
This is so funny. So I, started my career doing a lot of music videos, so I've done a lot of pitches to musicians, many. And I'm like, okay, this is so funny. Taylor Swift wrote a treatment for herself that's in depth, so much in depth than anything I've ever written. I was like, this is impressive, and it just really gave me a little snapshot of how you must be, because that was a lot of work for yourself.
Thanks.
Did you approve it? Obviously you did.
And it's weird. I don't know. It's so weird to write a manuscript like that, and I've done that for every one of my music videos that I've directed, and no one ever sees it. The world never sees them. It's just for people. Your crew. You want them to want to be a part of this, and to schedule and to give you their time and to give you their trust. And also, I just really wanted the actors to say yes. I really wanted Sadie and Dylan, and I was like, I've got to be really persuasive and thorough. I have to seem smart. So basically, I wrote this treatment, I sent it to Rena, and she just was like, immediately, I know what we're gonna do. You know, we're gonna shoot on Kodak Vision 3 500T for our interiors. We're gonna go with Ektachrome for our exteriors.
I don't even know what that means. You know? I'm gonna be honest right now on stage.
I learned a lot from Rena, and she's just one of those people that I will always feel honored to work with, and I will watch everything she makes, everything she's a part of. She recommended Saul Germain, who's here with us today, and he produced the film, and he really was such an amazing sort of guardian angel guide through shooting in New York. It's really special to be at the Tribeca Film Festival because we shot a lot of this in Tribeca.
How's it with you and crew and shooting and being on set?
Oh, it was so fantastic.
Yeah.
It was such a fulfilling experience. And then on top of that, I'm also really secret agenty about people not finding out what we're making while we're making it. So everything was code words and just writing things in codes that only certain people knew. And because I'm so weird. Stuff like that. And
while you were making Folklore, I was working with Aaron trying to get music for my film, and Aaron would be like, I'm working on something. Such a tell. And I was like, I forgot what I used to joke with him every day, like, it's the Beatles are getting back together. It was you.
Yeah, so being on set, you know, I'm mostly walking around just making sure that everything we're doing is right. I have this amazing set designer, Ethan Tobin, who I think maybe can read minds. He's so talented. I can't believe I get to be around these people at all. I feel like a contest winner when I'm on set. I really do. And then a lot of, there's also, we're trying to, move around discreetly, and we're trying to make sure that that we can make something, and then I kind of feel like a kid who made an art project, and I just want to be like, do you like it? I made a thing. And you guys are so nice about it. You've been wonderful. Yeah, being on set was fantastic, and also we did a lot of I had a lot of conversations with Sadie and Dylan about where their characters are coming from, and just we'd have lots of conversations that made me feel that they just got it. They got exactly, Sadie has this versatility, because I just really wanted someone who could go from that idealism and that unbroken spirit, and we see that it's so palpable when we first meet her, and I wanted to show their closeness with handheld shots. I wanted to be so close we could count freckles, and then as things transpire and things fall apart, I wanted our shots to reflect the remoteness that she feels, like this desperate isolation that she feels because her world opened up to this incredible, big, passionate, intense love, and then it just, all of a sudden, overnight, it boiled down to nothing, and the floor fell through, and she just feels far away from all her friends in her old life because she's been in this adult, mature world that she never quite felt fit either. Because the dinner party scene just kills me because she's so talented. And it's just the little micro expressions that Sadie will do that set her apart, I think, from just everyone else on the planet. And you can see her feeling uncared for, neglected in these tiny, tiny ways, but still trying to keep it together and trying to stay afloat, in these very adult situations. Dylan I wanted to work with so much because he has this electric charisma that this character needed to be able to get away with all the gaslighting. I don't care, man. It's pretty awesome. I talk to my friends' kids or just young people that I meet, and I'll have I'll have like a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old break down to me like, he's gaslighting her right there. That's psychological manipulation. You see her, she's questioning whether she really is overreacting. He's turned this around on her, look at her questioning herself. And it gives me hope for future generations, because if I was 19 or 18 watching that fight scene, I'd be like, oh man, he's winning. He's winning. And when we screamed it for the first time, we had people in the audience screaming out, gaslighter! Gaslighting! And I was like, I feel really good about the younger generation. So emotionally articulate. It's gorgeous.
I think that might be a great segue to two special guests.
Thank you. I
believe that Sadie and Dylan are.
There they are. How nice is it that they made time to do this? They're very busy.
Welcome to our concert. Okay, so let's just get to the gossip dirt. What was it like having her direct you guys? What's she really like as a director?
I mean, it's so funny, like I was listening to you backstage and when you were talking about sending us the treatment that you did and how you were like, oh, I hope they think I'm like capable of doing this. It's like, of course we thought you were capable. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree with when you said earlier, she's such a natural. Taylor's such a writer-director. And she always has been, she's always been such a storyteller. And I've always believed, literally, one of the truest storytellers of our generation, I obviously knew she could execute, something that she wanted to tell, and she always has, right? And then as soon as you have your first conversation with her, it's just a no-brainer.
And she had an answer to every question. Okay, so often writer-directors are kind of controlling with actors sometimes. Never me, but I'm not. The performance feels so alive, feels so organic, feels like just two energy balls bouncing off each other in different ways. How did it roll on the set?
I mean, it really just was such an intimate, comfortable environment. And there's so much power in that, and just making your actors feel so at home and giving them full creative freedom to just kind of explore and having coming from shows that are very technical and there's lots happening. This was so different than anything I had done because it was the room was lit and you could move wherever you wanted, and it wasn't there wasn't a set script or movement that you had to stick to. So there was just so much freedom, and that's, I think, how we got such real moments, and there was no, I don't know, we didn't really have to hold anything back.
Yeah, she possesses these innate qualities in a director that I feel like usually are always tied to experience. Trust, her ability to make a decision in the moment, her confidence, knowing what she wants, allowing her actors to just construct the scene on their own. There's always usually it's always a fight. It was a fight, to let you let us go, let us just go, and they'll be like, well, just give us one, stick to the script, her ability to just be go, is so confident and so brave. Because you can be talented and you can have great taste, of which all these things she possesses. Assembling the crew and knowing exactly what she wanted to do and who she wanted to get. But the on-set sort of just ability to operate, the freedom to create that environment, that is special.
And I do feel that is real confidence too.
Yes.
When you're just can let things go. tell me about that kitchen scene. Like, how did that happen?
I mean, it was exactly that. It was
As the gaslighter first.
I think it actually was, to be fair to you, I think it was Dylan. I reached out to you guys probably in July to shoot in October, so we had a lot of time to talk about what we wanted to accomplish, and it was Dylan's idea to script out a few of these scenes. We scripted out the, and when I say scripted out, what you saw them do, that's mostly improv.
I ended up throwing it away after I.
No, it was a great. It was like a nice template for us to realize, okay, they're breaking up. Why are they breaking up? Okay, they're arguing. Why are they arguing? What was the catalyst? And I think I hadn't decided whether I wanted to have these to break up the music and have these scenes, and I didn't know which one I would want to use. And I don't think that we had actually decided if this was going to be in the film the way that it was.
No, I didn't think it was going to.
So it kind of, the naturalism that you guys had, moving around this kitchen, having this realistic fight that, you know, Rena's in there with Steadicam, it's one take until the very end of the argument. Me and Saul and I were sitting behind the monitor just like punching each other's arms. Just the whole time we're watching them do this, it's like sparks were bouncing off of them or something. Like, you guys were absolutely blew me away, and I can't, I'll never forget.
It's such a complex dynamic, like sort of like relational thing that, like, you know, was always the real goal to achieve, you know, which was so exciting because it's one of the hardest things I think to execute, because we sort of realize at the moment it's not something that can be written. How people argue, how we repeat ourselves. We go in circles, you know, and you see that in a script. Usually, like, the producer's like, why are they repeating themselves? You know, he says this line 5 times, and take it out, you know, and that's what makes it, though.
Because you're trying to communicate.
That's
The
how
other
people
person isn't hearing you say it this way. Maybe you say it louder.
Yeah.
Maybe you say it with 2 words different.
Yeah.
You're trying to be heard. It's the failure to communicate.
Yes.
So perceptive.
Really good directing right there. So when I was watching it, I could really feel this like funny relationship between Sadie and Taylor through the camera, both back and forth to each other. Like, I felt like you were performing for her, and you were watching her in a way that like only God or a mother could. I felt like, whoa, there's a tie here. But then also, to you, there was obviously you're playing a slightly antagonistic character to the heroine, right? But there's a lot of love and respect and sort of care presented to you if you're doing things that are ultimately not helpful to this person. So I respected that balance, that it had a real mature balance to it. But am I right at all about, like, when you're watching her perform this story, it felt like such a tie.
It is true that most of the time that I was at the monitor watching Sadie perform, I was physically clutching my chest. That is true. There would be, especially these scenes where, you know, she was bawling and had completely gotten herself to this place where she was devastated, and everyone on set was devastated too, and we were all sort of with you in that moment, and you were, I think the physicality of how excruciatingly painful it looked for you and felt for us as a crew. It was so remarkable, whatever you did to get to that place. It blew me away, and also every time I watch it, it's actually hard for me to watch it, especially when you're crying so hard that it's concerning. It's really upsetting in the best way, and you know, just I do go on that journey every time I watch back. I'm so proud of it, and all of it is down to the naturalism you guys had together, the the realism of your chemistry. It was all down to you two, really. So thank you for trusting me to.
I'm just a muggle non-performer person. So when I work with actors, I'm just like so high. I'm like, oh my god, we can talk like this, and
It's amazing.
It's really crazy,
So
symbiotic, transformative thing, especially when coming from personal material, which I feel like this really is. So tell me more about working with Dylan, and how did you measure that? Like, because you are, I mean, I'm associating you two in the story. She's your avatar in the story. So, or what do we call her? Is that what we call her? Yeah. So what's Dylan, or how'd that work? Like, I thought you did such a good job of like showing things that were negative, but in a way that like kind of like had a love and a respect.
Well,
Did you guys talk about it in terms of
we
directing
talked a
acting?
great deal about this, I think.
Yeah, the first conversation we ever had about it, you said to me, I'll never forget it, you said, I need this guy to be likable, even though we are going to be executing some really, really unlikable things. And that is...
You said, I got it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, no problem. No, but it's again, it's such a nuanced perception that Taylor has into humanity and humans and how we operate, right? Because it's not black and white. It's not, it's not a monster. He's just a narcissistic, egomaniacal child. It's tough. But I watch a lot of trash reality television. And I'm obsessed with human dynamics.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I was just like, yes! And in contrast to Sadie's like beautifully pure performance, just so pure, and again, not to Taylor too, this, I don't know, I just feel like it was such a fit, and the age difference, and it's ironic because there's so much youth that you feel from you, pureness, right? But he is just ultimately the child.
No, I actually kind of inverted their maturity in watching it, because your center, whatever it is, your groundedness, even in your vulnerability, is so mature, I guess is the word. And your character's thing was more spinning and
All over the place.
It's a fucked up journey being a guy, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're spinning in guyness. It's not easy. So, can I go back to your commencement speech? I love your commencement. I think you unconsciously wrote a letter to your future director self. And I love that you said this to these young people. I like kind of teared up, and I was like, I gave you a big ride on from my house. So she said this to all these people graduating. I love this. Let me get my glasses. Sorry, because I'm not. Yeah. In your life, as a film director, you will inevitably misspeak, trust the wrong people, underreact, overreact on set with everyone in your crew. It's gonna happen. Hurt the people who didn't deserve it. That totally happens. Overthink when you're writing and trying to figure out what you're trying to do. Not think at all. That happens. Self-sabotage. We talked about that already. That's so fun, and we do it. I shared some of my doubts about myself with Taylor just immediately, and she just jumped right into like, oh yeah, and that surprised me. It was
What
beautiful.
are your toxic traits?
I love that. That was great. You're going to create a reality where only your experience exists. Ruin perfectly good moments for yourself and others. Deny any wrongdoing. Not take the steps to make it right. Feel very guilty. Let the guilt eat at you. Hit rock bottom. Finally address the pain you caused. Try to do better next time. Rinse, repeat. And I'm not going to lie. These mistakes will cause you to lose things. What a beautiful thing to say about yourself. All applies to directing.
It's so perceptive, and when you phrase it like that, me kind of stepping out of what it is that I usually do, which is writing songs and singing them. It is this kind of vulnerable moment where you're sort of on the precipice of trying something new and just really hoping that you do everything perfectly, but it is important to remind yourself that you shouldn't do everything perfectly because you need to learn, you need to grow. I'm also extremely aware of my privilege when it comes to being a female filmmaker because I was able to finance this film myself. That's not and so I think I have to constantly be aware that it's as much of a exciting challenge as it is for me to be doing something new. I also understand that it's still extremely hard for women to make films, and just always keeping one eye on that reality and realizing how lucky I am to even get to go near a camera in this way.
That was really great that you just said that. That's really true. That's really so important to acknowledge, and I think empowering to everyone to acknowledge that.
In terms of losing things, what you said, you will lose things in life. I'm in this situation, standing on this stage, talking about a short film that I'm incredibly proud of because I lost all of my work. I was not able to own my work, and I had wanted to since I can remember. And that was it was a very hard time for me. And I think that when I was talking about losing things, and it doesn't mean just losing, it's because a lot of my hardest moments and moments of extreme grief or loss were galvanized into what my life looks like now, and I'm very happy with where my life is now, getting to create with people like you, and getting to speak with someone like you who honestly just, again, thank you. It's all come from something that was hard to go through. The kind of journey that Sadie's character is on is very reminiscent of experiences I've had. And I think that one thing that I've learned throughout this whole process is to really lean on the support of people who believe in you, and I wouldn't be redoing my music, making these visuals. This short film wouldn't have happened if fans hadn't cared about and a song on the album that was never a single because the label was never going to pick it, and me saying in an interview, it originally had like 6 or 7 extra verses, it was originally 10 minutes long, and you guys just wouldn't let it go. I've promoted so many albums, went on so many tours, tried to move past the Red Album, and every time I would talk to you, anytime I'm doing a live stream, every time there's a Q&A, every time there's a meet and greet, there's, when are you going to release the 10-minute version of All Too Well? So it's the belief in people who fiercely care about you that I think will get you through losing things,
Yeah.
And you can find things along the way too.
When you tell me that whole story, I think it's such a beautiful thing that we don't control how the things we create come. We don't control where they go, right? And it's such a magical thing to happen. The song has its own story, its own journey, its own being, right? And I think you recognize that, and you really honored that with the film, and just every time I heard you talk about it. And then I love that the story is also about you just freaking taking ownership again in a real I'm gonna control, like in a way that you never saw coming, and I'm gonna change history by doing it. It's really quite.
There is something that feels very magical about sort of once more with perspective. you know, timing and perspective, it adds it's just a better view. The further you are back from something, the more of it you can see. And I know that if I were to have tried to make some sort of, you know, storytelling aspect in a visual way back when I had this album out and I was feeling very fresh things, it just I wouldn't have been able to do it. I just wouldn't have. And so I think that the situation that I find myself in, where, you know, people often greatly underestimate how much I will inconvenience myself to prove a point. I think I'm right.
That's like the name of the next record.
It's a little long.
But it could be good.
It's gonna be good. We'll just, you know, make the initials, shorten it. And I think that where we are in the music industry and where, you know, there's so much happening in the music industry that's so exciting. Like, don't get me started on vinyl. I think TikTok's really cool. I think the fans have kind of subverted the label model of we sit in a conference room and we pick the songs that you're gonna like, and you guys are like, no, no, we don't want to do that anymore. And I find it so radical and wonderful, and really, like, I'm just trying to sort of listen to the heartbeat of what fans want. It's so exciting to got to do this for this long, to have, you know, this many memories, and I'm just kind of listening a lot and having fun and making stuff, and it's just very cool that they want me to keep doing it.
So speaking of exciting and what the fans want, I'm listening. Like, I think we heard some rumors that, like,
You kept referring to this as a concert, and like,
yeah.
it could be.